I'm the sports professor, Rick Horrow. Welcome to Beyond the Scoreboard, Inside the Mega Events. It's a trillion-dollar sports business, to be sure, and about 50 to 60% of those dollars are wrapped up in the mega events, the championships, Super Bowls, All-Star Games, World Series, Wimbledon, tennis majors, golf majors, NASCAR championships, IndyCar championships, Ryder Cup. All of those too numerous to mention. I'm in my office to kick off the show, but I'm not here a lot. I'll be on the road on a weekly basis to bring you the inside tips from those major events. The balance sheets, who wins, who loses, the interviews, how you put on the events, and how you sustain them. This is all brought to you by Edelman Financial.
Money doesn't come with instructions. That's why we created Edelman Financial Services to help you with everything from college and retirement planning to managing your investments, helping you achieve retirement security. We're among the nation's top financial advisors. Come see how we can help you.
Inside the mega events, and how about this, ladies and gentlemen? We are at game 2 of the series, but a rainbow at Fenway Park. So we're all excited about what that means. It's a rainbow for Major League Baseball as well, by the way. Batting practice, and the franchises are the $3 billion Los Angeles Dodgers, second in the league in payroll as well as net value, apparently, versus the $2.8 billion Boston Red Sox. There's a lot more to it than that, quite clearly. And by the way, these games are not won in a boardroom. And so when you think about all of this, you just have the opportunity to be at a spectacle, and why not have rainbows and all of that as far as Major League Baseball is concerned. Look at some of the other stats, though. The ticket sales, about $1,240 an average ticket price at Fenway versus a little bit less for Dodger Stadium. That's because there are only 37,000 seats here, but there are other opportunities as well all over the place at Dodger Stadium. But yet, it's not $3,100 a seat, which is the average for Super Bowls. It's still big. What about TV? Well, the TV dollars, according to the stats, about $615,000 for a 30-second spot here. About $5 million for Super Bowl, quite clearly. But the overall perspective on this is the television dollars are driving it. Major League Baseball Advanced Media, for example, $1.15 billion annual revenue, and Disney just bought a $2.58 billion stake for 75% of the company. Television dollars, $12.4 billion with ESPN and TBS and Fox. Those are big dollars. And how about the media markets? LA goes without saying. Boston, the prolific sale of a legacy World Series. The last time these two teams played in the series? 1916, 102 years ago. The other issue, though, which is really important, is that there was a pitcher named Babe Ruth who started that series. And a year later, John F. Kennedy was born, just celebrated what would have been his 100th birthday. Clearly, this is the biggest event that rivals all of that. The other issue, too, as far as what's this all for? Well, civic pride, economic impact. The Commissioner's Trophy, by the way, is $18,600 to put it together. And each ring, there are about 400 of them given out or larger for the secondary market, about $11,000 per. By the way, these guys aren't playing for the ring. They're not playing for the trophy. They're playing for pride. They're also playing for the next World Series champ. There has been no repeat champ in the last 20 years. That's a testament to Major League Baseball parity. The overall perspective is this. Economic impact, really important. The Boston strong impact, even more important. Boston and LA, critical. Looking at economic impact is really one of the dimensions here, as well as the politics. So let's get into that as we move forward. People always tend to talk about economic impact in the abstract. There are Chamber of Commerce studies that always talk about some significant dollars. but nobody disputes the fact that the World Series generates anywhere from $80 to $120 million as part of a month of playoff baseball. And these are new dollars. These are people who come in this week from Boston to L.A. and back to Boston and then L.A. again and Boston. Obviously, the economic impact is shown for people who wouldn't otherwise be in a city. Boston tourism at a rise, L.A. tourism next week as well, not to mention the civic pride associated with all of this. So when people talk about building facilities and generating the impact from it, let's remember this series and its significant impact generated from it, not just on the field, but off the field as well. Rick Horrow, see you next time. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, we're inside mega events. You've seen a cold Fenway Park the last couple of days. And yeah, I understand that I did the segment basically inside, but hey, it was 35 degrees. I'm a Floridian, and I'm going to do it where I want to do it because it's my show. We now have a very interesting perspective on the series mega events, LA, Boston. The professor of marketing and communications at Harvard Business School. That's the first credential. The second credential is he's a really good friend, and the third credential is he's a dynamic Red Sox fan in that order. Stephen Gracer, how are you?
We're fine here at the Harvard Business School, but we're happy to welcome you back to the Harvard Business School.
I love the Harvard Business School, and as we know, I've doing a lot of done stuff at the Harvard Law School, and you've always been a constant friend. And one of the beauties about this institution is the combination of methodological, quantifying business decisions, but also a practical application. The fact that you're a Red Sox fan also helps all of this.
And a lifetime season ticket holder.
And the bottom line is you see him, good seats, obviously, because he wouldn't do it any other way, but a Red Sox hat. So put on your academic hat for me and walk through the notion of economic and social impact, especially around World Series. First question is, you have academics in the world staking out positions that are sometimes extreme, that there is no economic impact for anything related to sports because people will spend money on either movies or sports or otherwise, and then the position of economic impact, it depends on the size of the event, especially like a World Series, where you have people coming in from out of town and you can quantify the direct and indirect spending. Where are you on that spectrum?
I'm on the spectrum that says when it comes to mega events such as the World Series, where it's a daily phenomenon in two cities, lots of people come to those cities. The hotels are full. The ballpark is full. The restaurants are full. And maybe more importantly, when the weather isn't so cold, the streets are filled, at least in a small physical city like Boston. It's palpable that there is economic impact. That's separate from considering economic impact of new stadiums and other kinds of building and construction endeavors. This is around something that is spurred by fandom and followership. So there are economic effects, but in truth, my view is the psychological effects for a community in having postseason play, what I call the March through October for baseball, those are really big. They extend way beyond fans. Yes, there is fandom, no question. In fact, I have a concept called circles of fandom, but the people I'm talking about are out at the periphery of the circles of fandom because they're part of the bandwagon effect. The whole community gets behind the home team, not because they want to go to games, it's because they know that this is something that embraces lots more than just traditional fans. By the way, do you want to be the person who goes to the workplace or wherever it is one goes in the morning and not know what happened the night before? Where does that leave you in the conversation? I would say isolated.
Isolated at the very best. And so part of the conversation of this, as you identify it, is the emotional connection. How about the the feeling that comes from a winning team, or a feeling that kind of comes from kind of chasing a common goal. And by that, I mean the whole Boston Strong, the recovery aspect as well, social, sports, the power of sports as a healer, as an organizer, as a galvanizer.
The power of sports can be, not always is, but the power of sports can be very significant to a community. And you've cited what I will now put some specifics on, in 2013, after the marathon bombing, as it's called. Now, the marathon bombing was right in the center of downtown Boston in Back Bay. It actually, both the explosions and the smoke were seen by my wife from her office in our home. And I won't take you through the personal side effects of that. I would simply say that there was nothing more important to the greater Boston community for days than the marathon bombing. At the end of that week, the Red Sox came back, and the first game at Fenway Park was a true psychological highlight, but even on a more solemn note, was a very important landmark. And the notion of Boston Strong derived from all of that. The Red Sox were big supporters of it, and fast forward, in October of 2013, lo and behold, that sentiment, that spirit carried the Reds, and of course their talent, carried the Red Sox to the World Championship. In the Duck Boat Parade, which is traditional for Boston teams that win the big ones, and Boston has had more of them in this century than any other city. When the Red Sox Duck Boat Parade went down Boylston Street, where the Boston Marathon finishes, the championship trophy was taken off the bus for a short time and placed at the finish line as a memorial and symbol, the memorial to those who died or were seriously injured, the symbol of Boston Strong.
And frankly, you describe it anecdotally, the emotional impact of that, it can't be overestimated. It's incredible, not to mention the whole economic impact of all of these events, both direct and indirect. I will note for the record that any time Professor Gracer actually comes out of his pocket to buy something, it is a major economic driver in this community. It doesn't happen a lot. Note the baseball tie, ladies and gentlemen. So we have a true, proven, proof of concept case study. Shifting for a second, but Boston is the center of this as well, 10 years from now, we're celebrating an Olympics that in many ways was to be, quote, Boston's Olympics. It's 4 years before, which is Paris, or at least they would get it then 2028 if Paris was 24. And the bottom line is, you talk to the mayor, Marty Walsh, and his comments are, well, it's going to be a great Olympics and the economic impact is going to be great, but it's not going to be ours because the investment would have been too big. LA got the way to do it by keeping a lot of their existing facilities and repurposing and multi-purposing them for them. In hindsight, kind of right decision, since we're celebrating mega events now, reflect back on the Boston Olympic candidacy and that process, and kind of, are we in the right place?
Well, Boston is in the right place because there was no other place it could be, particularly after it demonstrated, my terms, that it was a fiasco to pursue the 2024 Olympics in the manner that it was undertaken. My purpose is not to provide a medical anatomy job on that effort. It's rather simply to say community support, foundation level, was not the first priority, and maybe it shouldn't have been, because you've got to get the business community behind it, you've got to get the political community behind it, but in truth, the support of the general community in a complex urban cum suburban environment just wasn't made enough of a priority. Comparison, Paris, with all the départements, as they call them, and the various areas of the city all were tapped into for support by the mayor. And Paris had one thing going for it that no other city had, and that's why I predicted way before the bid process moved along that Paris would have the inside track for the 2024 games. Why? Because it would be, and will be, the centennial of the 1924 games, the last time the Summer Olympics were in Paris. And a centennial is a big deal, both in terms of its anticipated economics, but also in terms of its psychology.
Well, and frankly, the idea of, and what you said was really important, that community support drives a lot of these mega events efforts. Sometimes the community gets it whether they had anything to do with it or not, like a World Series or in an event like a Stanley Cup playoffs. Sometimes the community earns it or not. Super Bowls, Olympics. In any event, these events call for special community support, a significant return on investment, but they have to be done the right way. Final question very quickly. This is aired on the day that the Game 3 starts in LA, but it's archived, so we'll have a chance to validate or not your prediction. Red Sox in how many?
My prediction is that Game 6 will not happen back in Boston, but there's an old expression that I used to use when I was a sportscaster, when I did 3 sports on the air. That's why they play the games. So all the punditry, the media geniuses, the commentators, the writers, everybody, and even fans that like to babble, all of that is behind you when the first pitch happens tonight at 8:09, and that's when we'll find out whether the Dodgers can mount. They're a very good team. That's when we will find out whether they can mount a comeback in their own ballpark.
Gratuitous babbling, expressions, and sentiments notwithstanding, Red Sox in 5, ladies and gentlemen. Stephen Gracer, thank you as always. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.